The Occupier did today in his little press conference announcing the stuff, the exact same thing that a certain former leader in the German persuasion did right before he disarmed the citizens of Germany, down to the fact that there was exactly 4 children in most of Hitler's little promotional materials. He picked 4 of the, quote, survivors from Newtown, among them who had written letters to him. And at least in one of the letters, it was clearly stated that I understand that laws have to be passed by Congress, but please try very hard. Swiftly followed by the promise, yes, I will try very hard. But this is more of trying to, from the mouth of babes kind of mentality that they want you to buy into. Why does Congress have to pass all the laws? Why can't the president have more authority? Because, ladies and gentlemen, those of you who understand the Constitution don't need to hear this. You can just hang on till I get back to other points. But those of you who do not understand the Constitution have to realize the Founding Fathers intentionally took every step they could to make sure that tyranny, soft or otherwise, could not take a firm grip in this nation. A system of checks and balances put in place was part of that backstop. If the executive has too much authority, then Congress can't do anything anyway. If Congress has too much authority, then the chief executive becomes just a figurehead. And if the judicial system has too much authority, then it runs over the other two. They're supposed to be equal, and their duties are equally divided so that not one of them has more authority than the other, so that none of them can become dictators. All right, I'm going to get back onto the point now. Sorry. I'm a little emotional on this issue and a few others too. I'm going to try to get back to the point. Executive action number 9. Issue a presidential memorandum to require federal law enforcement to trace guns recovered in criminal investigations. Are we going to start that with the Fast and Furious investigations, Mr. Occupier? That's just a question I'm wondering. Because, excuse me, but again, why aren't they already tracing guns recovered from criminal investigations? I thought that if you came across a gun at a crime scene, it was taken into evidence, and that that kind of background check was already done. What is the point of a presidential memorandum requiring federal law enforcement? Is that just because not all crimes fall under federal authority? Is this a federal power grab to get involved in every crime? An attempt, I suppose, not quite so veiled to cut away at states' rights a little more? No, you tell me. Political presidential action number 10. Release a Department of Justice report analyzing information on lost and stolen guns and make it widely available to law enforcement. Okay. Action number 11. Nominate an ATF director. Which he went ahead and made his announcement of his nominee and urged Congress to approve the nomination. We'll talk about that a little more on a later show. Number 12. Provide law enforcement, first responders, and school officials with proper training for active shooter situations. Now, I would be all right with this, except for the fact that I tend to believe that their idea of proper training is to duck and find a good place to hide while he reloads. Law enforcement has to get on the scene and has to secure the perimeter before they can do anything. Other first responders' responsibility typically is to try and treat the wounded if any of them are still alive, and school officials typically should be trying to move students to a safe area. Now, if you're not going to have armed security at your school, then you really need to have carry permit trained teachers who not just have the carry permits, but actually have additional training so that hopefully this scary situation, if it ever does happen, they'll be prepared and won't just be a nervous person. You know, it's scary when you're in a life and death situation and your adrenaline starts pumping, and until you've been in that situation, I don't care how many times you've been on a range, it's not the same. You don't know how good you're going to be or how good you're going to do in a situation like that till it happens. Law enforcement officers train for years, and they'll be the first to tell you that the first time they actually have to shoot somebody, it's different than just training. So what is the proper training for active shooter situations going to be? I mean, this is just like showing up and saying, oh, we're going to make sure we're prepared. How? Well, we'll work out the details later. We'll just be prepared. Fine. Action number 13. Maximize enforcement efforts to prevent gun violence and prosecute gun crime. What else are we supposed to be doing with our efforts to prevent gun violence and prosecute gun crime? I mean, I know a few DAs countywide in this area. I mean, I'm not tight with them or anything, but I know them, have had a conversation with one or two, and I can tell you when gun crime is going on, it's not like they're turning their back and looking the other way. Action number 14. Issue a presidential memorandum directing the Centers for Disease Control to research the cause and prevention of gun violence. Okay, here goes more taxpayer dollars into scientific studies of the evil gene and scientific studies of whether or not movies and video game violence desensitizes children to the point that they move to violence. Okay, what about how much these pharmaceuticals these children are being forced on changes their brain chemistry to the fact that they can't be reasonably functioning adults? Are we going to be looking at that too? Or are those some of those special interest groups you were talking about that might be donating a little too much to your campaign? Action number 15. Direct the Attorney General to issue a report on the availability and most effective use of new gun safety technologies and challenge the private sector to develop initiative and new innovative technologies. Okay, basically, this is waste some more money on upgrading locks and safes. I would love to see us move to a Judge Dredd style gun technology where the gun only operates if the approved operator has it. Of course, then you still have to worry about the approved operator going completely insane, but you know, that would be a technology I could get behind. That way, if somebody steals my gun, I don't have to worry about them using it in a gun crime. That seems like a pretty cool technology. I don't know about anything else outside of that. Now, seems like we've got a call coming in, but it is not for the show's line, so having some technical difficulties on the dashboard today. So I apologize on that. Now, let's move on. An attempt to clarify the Affordable Care Act does not prohibit doctors asking their patients about guns in their homes. All right, now, ladies and gentlemen, this is better known as Obamacare, and one of the lesser known and now less happy, as they've come to realize it was even there, aspects of Obamacare is evidently the NRA managed to get a provision in there stating that they could not use the Affordable Care Act as a way to garner database information about gun ownership. So now he's basically trying to change what Obamacare says about that. Why he would want to put that in place, I'm not exactly sure, except for the fact that maybe even he didn't realize that got slipped in. Action number 17. Release a letter to healthcare providers clarifying that no federal law prohibits them from reporting threats of violence to law enforcement authorities. Okay. I'm not real sure why any healthcare provider would think for a second that they're prohibited by federal law from reporting threats of violence to anybody. I would think, in fact, that the only doctors that would not be allowed, and it's not by federal law, but it's by rules of ethics, patient confidentiality, would be a psychiatrist who had a patient that made a threat. Don't know why that would need clarifying. This might be just one of those little areas where maybe they're now trying to intimidate medical professionals into thinking that they need to report more things than what they already are. Thinking again to another would-be dictator who was successful, who managed to have everyone reporting on their neighbors. Executive Action 18. Provide incentives for schools to hire resource officers. Alright, let's waste some more federal dollars when most schools either already have resource officers or they have an alternative. Action number 19. Develop model emergency response plans for schools, houses of worship, and institutions of higher education. I think a lot of places already have been working on things like that, but hey, at least it makes it sound like they're keeping people in mind other than just the elementary school. So, you need to be worried because there's been shooting at churches, there's been shooting at temples, there's been shootings at colleges. We know. This is an attempt to remind you of all the reasons why you, the public, should be demanding that the Occupier take more action. This is a testing of the waters, ladies and gentlemen. They want to see what the response is. He got too much pushback already, more than he expected. I am absolutely guaranteeing you right now, if he hadn't already received pushback, these wouldn't be quite so light and powder puffy. But this is testing the waters, and he wants to make sure he's sending the right image out. He wants you to demand him do it. That's how they work. It's dictator one-on-one. This is rules for radicals. The playbook has been done a million times. We can see it coming. You don't have to be clairvoyant to be able to predict what these people are doing now. Action number 20. Release a letter to state health officials clarifying the scope of mental health services that Medicaid plans must cover. Translation: we want you to make sure that you understand that this is covered. You're not taking full advantage of the federal taxpayer dollars at the state level. That's what that's about. Another excuse to funnel more money in just the process of educating the state health officials of what they can do. Action number 21. Finalize regulations clarifying essential health benefits and priority requirements within the ACA exchanges. And again, that's the Obamacare exchanges, which a lot of states aren't getting involved with, so don't know why they'd even bother with that, except that Obama can't understand or can't believe that that will continue.